You are 9 years old, and the wind carries the scent of frost and wet earth. You are crouched in the tall feather grass, the string of your small hunting bow pulled taut against your cheek. You are tracking a solitary marmot. It is a pathetic prize, but if you miss, your mother and younger brothers will sleep with hollow stomachs. You are an outcast. Only weeks ago, your father was poisoned by rival at a feast, and your own clan, refusing to follow a child, abandoned your family on this frozen steppe to die. You exhale. Your fingers loosen. The arrow flies. Before the creature even stops twitching, the ground beneath your boots begins to vibrate. Hoofbeats. Dozens of them. You drop the bow and turn. You are 15 years old when the raiders finally crest the ridge, kicking up plumes of grey dust. They do not want to kill you. They want to break the boy who refuses to die in the wilderness. They run you down. A heavy wooden club strikes the back of your skull. When you wake, the world is tilted and heavy. There is a thick wooden collar locked around your neck. The rests its brutal weight on your collarbones, chafing your skin raw with every step. You are a slave. They parade you through their camp to show the world that the son of a chieftain is nothing but a dog on a leash. Night falls. The camp drinks. Your guard grows heavy-eyed. This is the moment the old you dies. You wait until the guard leans his head back, snoring lightly. You swing your body weight, bringing the heavy edge of the wooden board down on the bridge of his nose. Bone crushes. He drops. You run into the icy darkness, plunging straight into the freezing waters of the river to hide your scent from the hounds. The water bites your skin like 1,000 needles, but you do not shiver. Surviving is no longer enough. You must become the terror they fear in the dark. You are 20 years old, and you decide to break the machine of the steppe. You start gathering men, not lords or aristocrats. You recruit the outcasts, the shepherds, the broken sons of shattered clans. You measure a man not by his bloodline, but by how well he handles a recurve bow, and how fiercely he holds his ground. You sit by the fire and watch them eat the meat you hunted. You give them the best cuts. You share your clothes. In return, they offer you absolute loyalty. You are building something dangerous. A meritocracy in a world ruled by ancient, stagnant bloodlines. Your childhood blood brother watches this with growing unease. He is of noble birth. He believes in the old ways. You sit across from him in his grand yurt, sipping fermented mare's milk. The tension is thick enough to stop a blade. He tells you to camp your people by the river, while he takes his people to the high ground. It is a subtle command, a test of submission. He wants you to acknowledge him as your superior. You stare at the embers of the fire. You calculate the numbers. He has more men, better horses, superior weapons. But his men fight out of obligation to their lords. Your men fight because you pulled them out of the mud. You do not argue. You simply stand up, walk out of his yurt, and gather your followers in the dead of night. You break camp. You separate your forces from his. The line is drawn. You are 40 years old when the war for the steppe reaches its brutal climax. You face the very same tribe that poisoned your father 31 years ago. You sit on your horse on a ridge overlooking the valley, watching the enemy massing their forces. Your commanders look at you, waiting for the order. You establish a new rule that will change warfare forever. No one stops to loot the dead until the battle is entirely won. Anyone who breaks rank to steal a fallen enemy's jewelry will be executed on the spot. You explain this with a cold, even tone. There is no room for greed. There is only the objective. You raise your hand, and the heavy cavalry charges. The impact is a thunderous crash of bone and steel. The air fills with the copper stench of blood, and the screams of dying horses. You watch with analytical precision. You signal the archers to feign a retreat, drawing the enemy heavy cavalry out of position. It works perfectly. They break their formation, rushing forward in a disorganized mob. Your archers wheel around on their horses and unleash a storm of arrows, turning the sky black. The lines collapse. The victory is absolute. But the aftermath brings a heavier burden. You stand in the center of the conquered camp. The nobles are rounded up before you. You look at the children. The unwritten law of the steppe is revenge. If you let these boys grow into men, they will come for your sons. You make a decision that will stain your soul forever. You order a wagon wheel to be brought forward. You declare that any male taller than the linchpin of the wheel will be executed. You watch as men and older boys are dragged away. You tell yourself it is mathematics. You subtract 1,000 lives today to prevent 100,000 deaths tomorrow. The psychological toll is buried deep, locked away where no one can see it. You are 44 years old, when the steppe finally falls quiet. The rival chieftains are dead, exiled, or kneeling before your boots. You have systematically dismantled the old tribal structures, scattering conquered warriors among your own units, breaking their old loyalties, and forcing them to rely on their new brothers in arms. You have implemented the decimal system, organizing your army into squads of 10, companies of 100, regiments of 1,000. If one man in a squad runs, all 10 face the sword. It is a brutal calculus, but it creates an unbreakable phalanx of discipline. By the year 1206, you call a massive council of all the tribes. Millions of people, countless horses, a sea of white felt tents stretching to the horizon. You sit on a raised dais, wrapped in pristine white felt. The shamans chant. The warlords bow. They do not call you by your birth name anymore. That hunted boy is dead. They give you a new title, Universal Ruler. You accept the title, but you feel no joy. You feel only the crushing, suffocating weight of responsibility. You are now the father of a massive, hungry nation. 1 million nomads who know nothing but war. If you stop moving, if you stop providing them with plunder and purpose, they will turn on each other. They will tear your new empire apart from the inside. The machine you built requires fuel. It requires enemies. You are 49 years old when you turn your gaze southward to the dynasty. A civilized empire of vast wealth, towering walls, and millions of subjects. They think you are a barbarian. They think their stone walls will stop your horses. You teach them the error of their arrogance. You cross the desert, a logistical miracle that requires your army to drink the blood of their own horses to survive the arid wastes. You arrive at their cities, encountering siege warfare for the first time in your life. You capture Chinese engineers. You learn how to build siege towers and battering rams. You turn their own technology against them. The siege takes months. Disease runs through your camp. Your generals urge you to fall back to the grasslands, to return to the world you understand. You refuse. You understand that perception is power. If the great retreats, the aura of invincibility shatters. You order your men to gather thousands of captive peasants and force them to march at the front of your assault, making the soldiers waste their arrows on their own people. It is a ruthless, calculated atrocity. You feel the bile rise in your throat, but you swallow it down. You do not have the luxury of a clean conscience. The walls fall. The city burns. The wealth of an ancient empire flows back to your capital. You are 57 years old when the final escalation arrives, in the form of a severed head. You sent a peaceful trade caravan to the empire in the west, seeking commerce, not conquest. The governor have seized your goods and slaughtered your merchants. You send ambassadors to the Shah, demanding justice and reparations. The Shah sends one back, with the severed head of your chief envoy. You stare at the decaying face of a man who served you loyally. The silence in your command tent is absolute. Your generals wait for your rage, expecting you to draw your blade and scream for blood. But you sit perfectly still, your mind running through the logistics of moving 200,000 cavalry across a continent. You are going to erase an empire from the face of the earth. You mobilize the largest army in human history. You descend upon the cities like a force of nature. You do not just defeat their armies, you dismantle their civilization. When a city resists, you order the entire population slaughtered. You divert rivers to flood their birthplaces, erasing them from the map. You pile the skulls of their citizens into mountains to serve as a warning to the world. You employ terror as a weapon of mass psychology. You realize that if the world believes you are a demon, they will surrender without a fight, saving your own men's lives. You lean into the monstrous image they project onto you. You become the wrath of God. The burden of this cruelty is heavy, a dark shroud that wraps around your mind, but you accept it as the cost of absolute rule. You are 65 years old, and you are dying. The wars in the West are winding down, but your body is failing. Your joints ache with the damp cold of the steppe. The injuries of 100 battles scream when you mount your horse. The gold and silk of a conquered world surrounding you. The fire crackles in the hearth. You hold a cup of wine, staring into the dark red liquid. You have conquered more land than any human being in history. You have written the laws binding millions. You have drowned your enemies in rivers of blood and built an empire that touches 2 oceans. Yet, the peace you fought for is an illusion. You receive reports of rebellions in the east. The people have defied you once again. The machine demands blood. You set down the cup. You map out the terrain in your mind. You calculate the grain reserves, the remounts, the arrow shafts. You realize the ultimate, tragic truth of your existence. You cannot stop. You built an empire that only survives through momentum. If you rest, the empire fractures. If you show weakness, your ambitious sons will draw their swords against each other, tearing down everything you built. The 9-year-old boy, shivering in the tall feather grass, was free, compared to the man sitting on the throne of the world. You are a prisoner of your own absolute power. You strap on your armor one last time. You pick up your sword, the metal feeling heavier than it ever has. The sun is rising over the steppe, casting long, bleeding shadows across the frost. You walk out of the tent to order the vanguard forward. The world is yours, and it will never let you sleep.